Hello and good evening, Fáilte. Welcome to Live Irish Myths with Anthony Murphy of Mythical Ireland. A very good evening to you. Welcome to episode Seachtó is a Seacht, 77. Hope you're all keeping safe and well during the current COVID-19 pandemic, which is what led us to start this adventure on the 12th of March. Tonight, we're going to continue the theme of Newgrange, which has dominated the week so far. And sure, why not? There's lots to be said about it. Such a magnificent, fine monument. Before we start tonight, I have to say a very happy birthday to Aaron Durrett. And as you know, many of you will know, Aaron is in Vashon Island in Washington, in Seattle, Washington. Happy birthday to you, Aaron. I hope that whatever you're doing today, you're having a lovely celebration. And I'm sure all of the Tua will join with me in congratulating you and wishing you a very happy birthday. Also, thanks, as always, to the Mythical Ireland patrons over at patreon.com/Mythical Ireland, who I've been neglecting to mention at the beginning of the broadcasts lately, but I must remember to do that more often. Thank you very much for your support of Mythical Ireland. And that's at patreon.com/Mythical Ireland, patreon.com. And that link is shared as a comment. On YouTube, Erica Bowes has thrown a what to all. Hello, Erica. Erica Rivertree says, Bannockty, Louisville, Kentucky. Hope you and your two of the MythFlix are safe and well. All good so far. Thank you, Erica. Mandy McCurl says, hello to I hope you're all well. In fine fettle, Mandy. Daisy Peter says, hi, Fáilte, Anthony and everyone. I'm ready for one more fantastic episode. Delighted to have you here as always, Daisy. Judith Nylan. Hey, friend, no forced labour to be here today. Just pure pleasure. Hello, Judith. Always a pleasure to have you along. Flower Child says, hello, Ireland, Anthony and everyone. Sending lots of love from Las Vegas. Thank you indeed, Flower Child. And on Facebook, the first of the watchers this evening is actually Patricia McAteer. Hello, Patricia, who's in County Louth. Melanie Rowe says hello from Denver, Colorado. Giaguch Melanie. Kristen Gray Taggart says, Bannockty, Anthony Augustua. I'm just about out the door for work, so I'll catch up later, but I wanted to say a quick hello to all my lovely friends here. Slán the Fold. Slán, Kristen, and we'll catch you later on, and at least you'll get to see your hello on the catch-up. Dawn Hilton says, good evening, Anthony. Trononoa. Alex Casterton says, hello, Anthony, and to hope you're all well. Another sweltering warm day in Albion. Giaguch, Alex, Michael Naylor, Michael and Jeanette are in Princeton, of course, are saying hello, Anthony, and all the tribe. Giagiv to the Nailers. Alex Casterton says, happy birthday, Aaron Durrett. See, there I told you. Lots of people will wish you a happy birthday. Hello, why can't I get you on the tube? Paula says, just between us, I forgot to set up the episode on YouTube. I'm only just after doing it, which is why I'm a couple of minutes late starting. See, the graphic on Facebook for announcing the episode, if you look at it, is different to the graphic on YouTube. The graphic on YouTube is the 1080 dimensions, 1920 by 1080. And at the beginning, I started doing two, and I've just continued doing two, and I'm just making work for myself. I have to make two versions of every graphic. So at lunchtime today, during a break from work, I got the Facebook one done, and I was full of myself. And then I totally forgot to do the YouTube one and set up the YouTube. Sometimes I set up the YouTube broadcast hours in advance. Totally forgot tonight. It's there now, and people are watching and saying hello. Jackie Stevenson says, hello, Anthony. And the Tua finally was able to get you on the tube. Yay. John Main says, Bannockty, San Francisco. Hello, John. And Aaron Durrett says, hello, dear Anthony and Tua. Thank you so much for all the lovely birthday messages. Of course, a lot of those will be here on Facebook, Aaron, so we'll try and make sure you get those. Nick Eska Casterton says, hi, Anthony. Hope you and yours are all good. Hi, Tua. Hope you've all had a good day. All in good form, Nick. Thank you for coming along. Barbara Kling, and for asking. Barbara Kling says, hello, Anthony. It is hot in Vermont today. Toshe Chet and you. It was Chet today. It was also hot in Ireland, which is great. Barbara Barney says, hi, Anthony. Giaguch. Barbara. Alan Bryett says, good evening, Anthony and Tua. Fáilte. Alan. Maeve Fiona Callahan says, Trononoa Tua. Fáilte. Maeve. Nikki Hart says, happy birthday, Aaron. There you go. Mark Kavanagh is saying hello on YouTube. Fáilte, Mark. Yes, Kristen Gray Taggart says, happy birthday, Aaron. Have a great day. Marta Lopez Garcia says, hi, Anthony, and good evening. So, no, what, Marta? Jennifer Foley says, happy birthday, Aaron. Margaret Ring is watching. Yay. Ralph Aldrin says, Trononoa Dun Tua Golair. Happy birthday to Aaron Durrett. Thank you, Ralph. Alwyn Roy Badziak says, go, Anthony. It says goo, Anthony Augustua. I presume a mistype. Good evening, Alwyn. Barbara Kling says, happy birthday, Aaron. Patricia McAteer says, happy birthday, Aaron. Jack Durkin says, hi, everyone. Falcha, Jack. Marta Lopez Garcia says, happy birthday, Aaron. Robin Edgar says, Aaron, go birthday. Kathy Ann Dale says, good evening, Mr. Anthony, and blessings to all the two. A beautiful sunny day here in Newcastle, Washington State. Glad to hear it, Kathy. Falcha. Maureen O'Leary is here, talking ancient Ireland and watching the NASA SpaceX countdown to take our astronauts back into space. Wow, what a day. Next step, back to the moon. Godspeed, Robert Benkin and Douglas Hurley. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Might be able to see it here from Ireland. We might be able to see them crossing the sky later on when the episode is finished. Marcia Montero says, good evening from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Good evening, Marcia. Falcha. Yvette Tillema says, yay, from Keene, New York. Howdy to the lovely Tua and Mr. Murphy. And happy birthday, Aaron. See, oh, I'm telling you. Evening, Anthony, and all the lovely Tua, says Margaret Ring. Falcha, Margaret. Jules Cousin says, hello and happy birthday to Aaron. Falcha, Jules. Susan Scott says, hello, all. A beautiful day here in Connecticut again. It really feels like summer today, sunny and 83 Fahrenheit. It feels so good. Hope you're all well and looking forward to another episode, as I am. Big hugs. Brilliant stuff. Falcha, Susan. Margaret Kiernan says, good evening, Anthony. What a lovely evening, and indeed it is. Danilo Paparello says, hello from Italy. Ciao, Danilo. Deborah Alland says, happy birthday, Aaron Durrett. Mariana Dunn says, hello, dear Anthony and Tua from Virginia, watching NASA SpaceX launch on another computer. Very happy birthday to Aaron, indeed. Jackie Stevenson says, hello, everyone. Falcha, Jackie. Red O. Maldonik. Hi, Geraldine Maloney, NY. Hello. Hello, Geraldine. Falcha. Kelly Edmiston says, Judith, my favorite crone. Pham Chi Tan Tan says something that I don't understand, but I'm presuming it's either hello or welcome or good evening or something like that. Big happy birthday sticker from Kathy May Deo. Tom King says, happy birthday to the friendly Tua. Another lovely day. Blessings of a forge to all. And the birthday girl, Erin. Happy birthday. Nick Casterton says, happy birthday, Aaron Durrett. Jackie Stevenson says, hello, Falcha, Jackie, and watching on YouTube as well, or is that a different Jackie Stevenson? Trina New York says, J'arrive, everyone. Hi, Trina. We enjoyed your musical performance that you shared. Thank you for doing that. Deborah Alan says, hello, everyone, from Sussex, Wisconsin. Falcha, Deborah. Heather Guerin Rice says, missed a couple of days. Happy to be back. And, of course, we're glad to have you back, Heather. To Doris O'Hara says, hello, Anthony and all. A very happy birthday, Aaron. Falcha, Doris. Theresa McGuinness says, hello, all. Florida here. Falcha, Florida. Good evening. This is the result of the Florida jury. Scott Taggart says, Giaglitch, Anthony Augustua, Falcha. Indeed. Happy birthday, Aaron from Alwyn Roy Badziak. Jim Conway from the sunny shores of Loch Yochie. Good evening, Jim. Shannon Clark says, good afternoon from Elko, Nevada. Falcha, Shannon. Pardon me. Longty Minnow C says, salutations to Anthony and the Tua. Greetings. Edward Curry says, hello from New York. Falcha, Edward. Mario Stepanovich is watching. Hello, Mario. Falcha. Good evening to you. Margaret Ring says, happy birthday, Aaron. And she sends hugs. Carol Barra says, Giagiv Tua de Conde Galiev. Good evening, Carol. Happy birthday, Aaron, from Barb Jordan. Giaglitch. From sunny Skerry, says Patricia Langton. Always a delight to have you in the house, Patricia. How are things? Larissa Kama says, sunny greetings from Portland, Oregon. Falcha, Larissa. Paul Gowron says, good evening, Sir Anthony, and all our Tua, new and established. Yes, indeed, Paul, and all the newcomers. Maggie McDonald is watching. Hello, Maggie. Long time no see. Hope you're well. Scott Taggart says, happy birthday to Aaron. Judy McQueen says, hello, Falcha. Danilo Paparello says, happy birthday, Aaron, from Italy. Jim Conway says, many happy returns, Aaron. Mary Hanrahan, so happy to have found your episodes. Well, we're very happy to have you along, Mary. Falcha. Jackie Stevenson says, how are you? I'm in great form. Francis Tute is watching. Fáilte, Francis. Dave Russell. Hi all. Jim Fitzpatrick, an all-time artistic hero of mine for a quarter of a century, liked one of my comments today on Monumental Ireland. I'm over the moon. There you go. Fantastic stuff. Liam Mahan says hello to all. Fáilte, Liam. Candace Hamilton Bohonic says warm greetings from Enumclaw, Washington. All the Washingtoners are in the house. I tell you, they're all here. You're very welcome. Is it Candace or Candace? Marcia Montero. Hello, indeed. Patricia Healy-Sullivan. It's not here in northern Vermont. I missed a few live episodes. Sorry, it's hot. I'm glad to settle in this afternoon. Well, we're very delighted to have you along, Patricia. Shannon Sims says, howdy from Texas, Fáilte. Kimberly Halligan says, hi, Anthony and Tua. I think I'm going to sneeze. Elbow sneeze. Hi, Anthony and Tua. Grand day. Just ordered your book, Mythical Ireland, from your author page on Amazon. Alert to the US Tua. Amazon is down to a handful of copies. Happy to be able to catch the live sessions. Thank you. Well, thanks for the notification, Kimberly, and I hope you really enjoy the book. Dahi Duvlike says hello from Yonkers. Fáilte, Dahi. Elizabeth Fry says hello from West Virginia. Fáilte, Elizabeth. Martin Doheny says hello, Anthony and Margaret and Tua from sunny South Kilkenny. Welcome along, Martin. Regina Riley says hello, Giagwich. Colin B. Sterling. Well, the Irish be nice to a Dutch/German/Irish/Cherokee Christian left kidney donor who has a Taiwanese wife when we come and visit. I'm looking for friends, not tour guides, to show us around Ireland. When we visit there for about 16 days, please send me a private message. Thanks. Okay, I don't know what that means. Friends, not tour guides. Okay, all right. Megan Walter says happy birthday to Erin. Kimberly Halligan says happy birthday, Erin. And Erin Duresh is now watching on Facebook so that she can see all these wonderful birthday greetings. Porigo Komisky is saying, hi, Anthony. What a day. Hope everyone is keeping well. Yes, indeed. What a day. Cy B says good evening from sunny Limerick. Fáilte, Cy. James Ware, MHAOIR, says how are you from LA. Fáilte, James. Amelia O'Connor is saying hello from a blue sky Cork. Mr. Blue Sky. Yes, indeed. Dean T says, bright rainbows and love your books, Tony. I want to open those bookstores and bars and concerts, lol. Yeah, I know how you feel. I definitely want to open the bookstores. Steve Martinson says, hello, Anthony. Can't wait to get stuck into today's program. Fáilte, Steve. Kay Schultz says, hello from Olympia, Washington. I told you they're all here. Say hello to Pat Rowan as he passes in his van. Hello, Kay. Fáilte. Finally got my laptop working, says Aaron. Love to you all, and thank you, Anthony, for the sweetest greetings. Feeling blessed. Good stuff. Amelia O'Connor says, hello from a blue sky, County Cork. Amelia tried twice. We got it, but it's okay. We know it's sunny in Cork, and you're welcome on the double. With a mask, of course, says Dean T. Michael Marr is watching. Fáilte, Michael. Conas a thought too. Erica Bow says, good afternoon, and happy birthday to Aaron. Brilliant. Bless you, bless you, bless you. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Jerry Andrade says hello to nearly late. Phew. Yeah, a wizard is never late. Frodo Baggins. Bridie Gestalter says, hey from Geelong in Australia. Good morning, Bridie. Lovely to have you along from Australia. Hope it's sunny down there. Kimberly Halligan says, I know I will enjoy the book. Can't wait for it to arrive. Brilliant stuff. Veronica Casey says, hey, everyone. Giagwich, Veronica. Debbie Daly says, hi from sunny San Jose in California. A very good evening, or is it good morning? It's just noontime there, really, isn't it, Debbie? Fáilte. Beth Amos says, good evening from Abruzzo, Italy. Ciao, Beth. Good evening to you. Gaulashkil Lat, says Paula Snow Queen. Thank you. Pat Rowan is watching. Don't forget to wave to the Olympic Peninsulars watchers and all the Washington Staters as you pass. Muthu Maripan says, hi, super sweet friends. I love you. Good evening, Muthu, and you're welcome along, Fáilte, to Live Irish Myths. Scott says, and I have to go. Work is getting peoply, and they need adult supervision. Grumbles. What can you do? Scott, we'll catch you on the rewind. We'll see you later on. Robin Fitzpatrick says, greetings from Clare, and greetings right back to you, Robin, from Conde Naloo. Okay, the Full Irish is on YouTube, says Fáilte, good evening. Flower Child says, I was to celebrate my 60th in Ireland this Saturday, I guess next year. Yeah. Something to look forward to, maybe. Sandrine Brady says, hi, I'm in the house. Anthony, you're in the living room tonight. We're all in the house. Bonsoir, tout le monde. Yes. I don't know if you'll all fit in the library, but sure, we'd give it a go, you know. Lisa Kendrick says, so excited to make it for a second live video of yours. I'm ready to relax and listen on this humid afternoon in Norfolk, Virginia. Fantastic. And great to have you along, Lisa. Followed you. Robin Fitzpatrick. Oh, yes, I did. Bridie, it's bloody cold, but well done pronouncing the surname. Gestalter. Yeah. Sure, look. One likes a linguistic challenge. What are we on? We're on 15:30, right? That's okay. We'll tell the YouTubers to skip forward to 2 minutes, so they'll have to listen to 13 minutes of hellos. Tonight's subject is a very interesting one. I think it is. Maybe you don't. And the title was probably a tiny, not a bit misleading, but because I can only fit so much into the caption on the graphic, I said Newgrange, cooperation or enforced labour, or forced labour, or forced or enforced. I don't think it really matters. John McGovern is watching. Fault you, John. And really, it should probably be Newgrange, Nouth and Douth, you know, the large monuments of Bóinne, cooperation or enforced labour. I'm going to be reading a little bit tonight from the aforementioned Mythical Ireland. Another thing that I have to be honest about, and entirely, I think I can keep that open. I think I can be entirely objective now. Not that I was never entirely objective, but and that is the fact that I don't actually. I'm not sure. So if you've arrived here and you're thinking, "Oh, great, I'm going to get an answer to this question," I wouldn't get overexcited, because I don't necessarily intend to provide you. Sorry, I'm just adjusting the camera for YouTube. I don't necessarily intend to give you a thoroughly comprehensive answer one way or the other, as you can imagine. Tom Horan says, good evening from Wicklow. Giagich, Tom, nice to have you along. As you can imagine, the evidence, well, as with all of the evidence, the dating evidence tells us the dates. The material evidence tells us something about the sequence, etc. But how was the project devised? You know, if you go back in time. And so this is just a generalization. If you go back in time and look at any of the great monument building. What? No answers? I'm shocked, Anthony, says Paula Snow Queen. I didn't say I wouldn't have answers. What I'm trying to say is I'm not sure that you will get a definitive yes or no answer. We'll have a discussion about it and prompt further questions, you know. Monumental Ireland is here. Hello, Simon. And we're off. Rowan Grove says, greetings to all. Arriving a little late, could not find my reading glasses, so using the backup pair. Always good to have a backup. My backup reading glasses are in the drawer, in the desk, in work in Dublin, where I can't access them. So I have to look after these. Mello Nello says, who is Neil, says, I made it. Hi, Anthony. Evening extended to a Fáilte Mello. Just between us, it's Aaron Duret's birthday. Calvin Ryder says, hello from Toronto, Canada. Fáilte, Calvin. Very nice to have you along. You know, a generalization would be that if you go back to any of the sort of large monumental constructions, you'd have to imagine, wouldn't you, that a large number of people are involved. Say, for instance, if you look at the pyramids, say, for instance, if you look at Stonehenge, if you look at the great cathedrals of Europe, etc., etc. Now, in each of those cases, you could ask, cooperation or enforced labour. In some cases, you might be able to figure that out because maybe some of them are more recent than others. We are dealing, of course, with the Irish Neolithic. Damon McKenna says, Giagich from the Smoky Mountains in East Tennessee. Fáilte, Damon. Tarini Pendleton says, Banachty, all from Laguna Beach in California. Lovely to have you along, Tarini. Oh, it's Francis who is Egoni on Monumental Ireland. Sorry, I apologise. My mistake, Francis. As I always say, very, very nice to have either of you along. Both of you is an extra bonus. Kathleen Kendall Martin says, good afternoon, all. Fáilte, Kathleen. The difficulty with the Irish Neolithic is that, we're looking at a period that spans from roughly, 4000 BC to roughly 2500 BC. It's a long, long time ago. I can still remember. Sorry, I'm definitely not going to sing. It was a long time ago, and we have no written records from then. The only writing we have, and we put writing in parentheses or in inverted commas, is the carvings, the megalithic art on the stones, and that's not really writing, and it doesn't really does it. It's symbolic, abstract, astronomical, perhaps in nature, some of it. Does it tell us anything about the hierarchy that might have been in place? I think you'd actually need to turn to the mythology more so than the archaeology, but that's a very controversial area because who knows how far back the mythology goes, and most experts would not stake their reputation in saying that any of it goes back into the distant past. So what you're left at is struggling, grappling with the question, and the question is, we know that a substantial number of people were involved in construction in the Bóinne Valley in the Neolithic. We know this just purely from the huge number of monuments. The late Neolithic complex, which was discovered by myself and Ken Williams in 2018, was quite extensive. And because those monuments all respect each other's boundaries, and some of the earthen ones, such as Site P, the Henge, that would suggest that a lot of them were standing at the same time. They were contemporary with each other, and therefore you could reasonably assume that they were built in the same sort of time period. And given that there was a large army of people required to build monuments, then it goes without saying that one would have to have some sort of a structure in place. You have to kind of think of any sort of large construction project would need, well, as I say, it actually starts with the dreamer. It starts with the artist, the one who has the vision for the whole thing, and that person or that group of people who may have constituted some sort of a druidic or a priestly class were the ones who had to sort of communicate the project to the community at large, and the reasons for doing it, and the methods, and the sizes, and the scales, and the materials. But then there is a requirement, most definitely, for teams of people, for instance, sourcing the stone, teams for actually prizing the stones out of the earth, teams for sailing that stone by sea and river to Bóinne, teams for fetching that stone from the river to the monuments, teams for assembling the monuments, teams for designing the monuments, and ultimately a great deal of cooperation. Dave Russell wants me to sing. I can't sing, first of all, because I can't, and I'm desperate at singing. The second reason is Facebook is very fussy about if it hears music in your videos, it won't show them. I did a broadcast outside the door one night. I don't know, some of you will remember. Desiree Riley is watching. Hello, Desiree. Barbara Murphy is in Tucson, Arizona. Late as usual. No, not at all, Barbara. You're just joining us at the right moment. But I was out in the driveway showing you the moon through the giant binoculars one night. Some of you might have watched that. And in the distance, somebody in a house in the distance was playing music. And Facebook afterwards said that it couldn't make my video live because there was a copyright claim. And I said, there's no music in that video. I listened back and I couldn't hear anything. I listened back again in headphones. And sure enough, for a few seconds, you can hear very, very, very distant, off in the far distance, a little bit of music. And they put a copyright claim on. So there you go. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be doing any singing. Unless I was to sing something completely unique. And believe me, if I start singing, it will be bloody unique. I can tell you that for nothing. Mary Beecher says hello to a Fáilte Mary Conasatatu. And Nora Gaffney O'Connor says, Giagriv Golair, hope you're all well. Fab swim this morning. Great day, isn't it? Well for you. And I mean, you have to be disciplined It's not just that it's well for you. I'm sure it's cold as well at times. But anyway, it's nice. So I'm going to read a little bit from Mythical Ireland, New Light on the Ancient Past. And that is, of course, written by myself and published by the Liffey Press in 2017. A catalogue record of this book is available from the British Library. So there you go. Kirsten Salisbury says, hi all, gorgeous day here in Canada. Just saw a fox in the woods. Not a hare, but magical all the same. A shunnock. A shunnock. Nice one, Kirsten. Good evening to you. One of the major questions surrounding the construction of the giant chambered cairns of the Bóinne Valley is whether the builders laboured hard at this immense monument building project out of zeal and community cooperation, or as a result of enforced labour. The greatest of the cairns, Newgrange, Nouth and Douth, appear to have been constructed by a large body of people, and the scale of the project was regional, if not national. I'll give you the footnotes where I can. And of course, footnote 1 refers to Murphy. That is 2012. That's Newgrange Monument to Immortality. Emeritus Professor of Prehistoric Archaeology at Queen's University, Belfast, J.P. Mallory, says that in the Mesolithic, this is of course pre-Neolithic, in hunter-gatherer times, hunter-gatherers considered most material possessions as, quote, impediments to mobility, unquote. And I think that's from, who are the, what's it called, the ancient Irish? I can't remember the title of it now. It's here on the shelf. The Origins of the Irish. A wonderful book. And Mallory is both a fabulous scholar and a good writer, and is quite entertaining in places. In the Neolithic, however, the emergence of agriculture led to many changes in the way we lived. Interestingly, fish was apparently off the menu, as there was a major shift from a marine diet to a terrestrial one. And of course, that's a discussion, isn't it, that came up yesterday, wasn't it yesterday, in the discussion about the mata being possibly a giant water snake or an eel. Somebody suggested it might have been an eel, a giant eel, and that eel was one of the staple foods of the Mesolithic, along with salmon and trout, in terms of riverine foods. And I think that's also, that is also Mallory. Yes, it is indeed. We should not be altogether surprised by that, but it seems to have been a fairly dramatic change. The landscape changed too. There was significant cutting down of virgin forests for the purposes of agriculture and monument building. In other words, in order to clear fields for tillage and in order to clear areas for monument construction. Interestingly, this is mentioned in mythology. Slánne, king of the Firvolg, and their judge. By him was its wood cleared from the brew, and that's from the Dinshenicus about slain, or Slánne. And that's from Gwyn, 1924, page 271. And there's a separate entry. Brega, son of Brogan, was the eldest of Brogan's children. And by him the plain was cleared of trees, and from him it takes its name. And that's from Mag Breg in the Wren Dinshenicus, Stokes, 1894. In the Neolithic, Kieran Campbell is watching. Hi, Kieran. Very nice to see you. In the Neolithic, Mallory says there was an evolution of the concept of, quote, surplus, wealth, and social ranking, unquote. Or as he puts it, if you prefer, waste, greed, and discontent, unquote. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And so, as the seeds of agriculture were sown in the Bóinne Valley and other parts of Ireland, introducing a new way of life to the island, the seeds of a modern civilization were sown. were also sown, one that, despite all its benefits, has seen us painfully divorced from cosmos and the natural world, such that we're trying to kill our planet by overpopulating it, by stripping it bare, by choking it, and by many other means. And of course, there have been arguments for and against the whole question of overpopulation, and that if we manage things right, we can do perfectly well with 8 or 10 billion people living on the earth. I think it's more to do with our management of where we live and how we treat the earth and its resources. Terry Lan Zahariah says, very late, but happy to see you. Fault you, Terry Lynn. It is with the Neolithic that we see, and this is a quote, this is possibly again from Mallory, yes indeed. It is with the Neolithic that we see the emergence of the ethic of fertility, encapsulated in the biblical injunction to, quote, increase and multiply, unquote, which is now being challenged by world overpopulation. The point, or rather the question, in terms of the whole idea of social ranking and wealth and discontent is this. Were the monuments built by a community of people that was unified in its beliefs and content to contribute to this mammoth effort to enshrine its beliefs and perhaps immortalize its moment in time monumentally in stone? Excuse me. Pardon me, another elbow sneeze. And I wouldn't mind, I took my allergy tablet today, but I reckon there's plenty of pollen in the air. I apologize, but I seem to have missed. Young Decaf says, had a sword name, something. I'm not sure if you know the story or not. Well, Young Decaf is there. Hello, Young Decaf. Not sure what your comments are about. But anyway, Office Care 36, who are the woodsies in Monaster Boyce, say, Icha Anto, the dinner was too good tonight. Had to get the most out of it. That's entirely understandable. And Aaron Durrett says, thank you so much for the lovely birthday greetings, dear, to our friends. You're making my day. Brilliant stuff. Or as the result of a hierarchy, a system of social ranking, was that community coerced, compelled, or otherwise forced into these monumental labours against its wishes? I would like to be able to tell you that there is a definitive answer to that question, but there isn't. The end. Any questions? There does not seem to be enough archaeological evidence to place ourselves on either side of the fence, let's call it a Neolithic palisade, that divides these two options. There might, of course, be a third option. It is possible that some people did it because they wanted to, and some were coerced, compelled, or otherwise forced. So while you're sort of mulling that over, I am going to take another allergy tablet. I apologize. My nose just feels like very sort of, itchy. What's the word called? Sensitive even. Kerem Gogus is in the house. Fulcha Kerem. Good evening to you. Hope you're in good form. However, Mallory does lean a little bit towards one side of the Neolithic palisade when he says this, offering a glimpse at the theory he might prefer. While mutual cooperation is always possible, large labour projects have often been seen to indicate the emergence of some form of social elite. And again, that's all from Mallory 2013, which I'm pretty sure is the aforementioned, The Origin of the Irish. But I'm going to check anyway, because I'm fussy about these things. Some of you may be interested. Yeah, Mallory JP, 2013, The Origins of the Irish, Thames and Hudson. Now, I would highly recommend that book, folks, but if you're going to buy it, definitely buy the revised paperback, because the stuff about genetics was revised between the first edition and the second, for good reason, because the results from genetics have revised the thinking in the past number of years. Congested, yes, that's one word. So if you're going to buy it, get the paperback, and you might save yourself a few quid because the hardbacks are usually a little bit more expensive. But I highly recommend it. The Origin of the Irish by J.P. Mallory. I know for a fact many of you will enjoy it. And another book that he wrote. No, we'll get to that in the third part of the Mythical Ireland Library Tour because we haven't covered that section yet. Personally, I have always, this is me speaking, not J.P. Mallory. Personally, I have always leaned towards the we're all in this together idea and see in the monuments of the Bóinne a collective and cohesive effort representing the endeavours of a community that was largely working as one. And Gillian Smith is in the house. Trononama Fáilte, Gillian. Very good evening to you. Delighted to see you on here. And myself and Gillian are good friends on Facebook. And Gillian is involved in history and archaeology in Wales. Isn't it Llangollen, Gillian? Great pleasure to have you here anyway. What is my evidence for this supposition? I see monuments, large and small, apparently built to a system based on alignments and on cosmology, representing an effort to record and understand the passing of time and cycles, but also representing a spirituality whose complete depth and complexity we might never understand. There was an artistic zeal too, an expressive competence, perhaps indicating a community that was at the height of its creative output. Remember, I've said this, and I've mentioned it in previous episodes, that Bóinne really represents some sort of an extraordinary zenith, an apex. It's like, there was just a huge amount of expression in it, the expression of, that will to define our little place on this cosmos, or how insignificant we are in it all, but let's make something significant to mark our place here. Vicky Wallace-Southall says, hello, my lovely friends. Fáilte, Vicky, very good evening to you, and I hope Evan is with you. Hello, Evan, if you're there. Megan Walters makes a good point. It's easy to equate social elite with oppression, but it's as likely that the elite were supported by their society based on what they provided to that society, a bottom-up approach rather than any oppressive regime. One only has to look at the church, the Catholic Church, for an example of that, although the church didn't necessarily, it could be argued, the church didn't necessarily direct things, but the church and state here in the 20th century were so intermarried, it was hard to separate them at times. It certainly doesn't seem like a project that was undertaken or completed under duress. Now, having said that, of course, some people had to move giant stones, some of which weighed up to 10 tons. And that was a dangerous enterprise. That was a dangerous undertaking, a fraught undertaking, one that was filled with the constant danger. And I've always said it, I said it in the early chapters of Newgrange Monument to Immortality, that if one was to have a stone roll over onto one's leg and break one's leg, that was kaput, end of story for you, a slow and agonizing end. You couldn't go to the hospital, doctors, practitioners, physicians existed at that time were likely a mixture of sort of shamanic practitioners and herbalists, etc., who couldn't do much for you if you had a broken leg. And I think hasn't it been said at some point, and I can't remember whose quote it was, but I thought it was fantastic, that the first real sign of emerging cooperative civilization is when you see broken bones being mended. And being helped in the mending process. When one human or group of humans helps another human to mend a broken leg or a broken arm, and to mend them and to bring them back to health, that's when you've achieved proper civilization. Don't think we had that in the Neolithic. If you broke a bone in the Neolithic, that was probably the end of the story for you, unfortunately. Pardon me while I blow my nose. Pity I couldn't mute. That is live TV. Great fun, isn't it? It's all right if you have a commercial break when you're in the Late Late Show and you can blow your nose when the commercial break is on. No such thing here. Climate change may well have played a significant role in the motivation of the community towards the construction of ever more gigantic passage tombs. Archaeologist Robert Hensey, says that while the first generations of farmers on this island might have been, quote, pleased with the rich soils and favourable climate they encountered, unquote, there was a significant change in the climate from 3600 BC to 3000 BC, bringing cooler conditions and more precipitation. And that's from Robert Hensey's wonderful book. I'm going to show that to you because you may want to add it to your collection. Oh no, am I encouraging people to spend more money on expanding their libraries? That's what Robert's book looks like. First Light, The Origins of Newgrange. Published Oxbow Insights in Archaeology, Oxbow Books, 2015. And as well as being a great scholar and a great archaeologist, Robert is a thoroughly nice guy, actually. He and I have shared a number of conversations at Newgrange at the winter solstice, and they've always been thoroughly interesting and engaging. And here's a quote, presumably again from Robert's book. Yes, farming communities must have been placed under significant pressure by these changes. A curious and thus far unexplained aspect of passage tomb construction is that the monuments increase in size and complexity even as the climate was degenerating and agriculture becoming more difficult. Particularly, there seems to be a greater investment in passage tomb construction in parallel with the deteriorating conditions. And this is very interesting. It is very interesting if you think about it. Bigger passage tombs as basically food production gets more difficult. It sounds like a fine line was being tread at times. Mayfina Callahan says, I think the point about the broken bone mark of civilization is not that they knew exactly how to heal the bone perfectly, but that people would care and feed the person who couldn't use their limbs, not just leave them to die. That is exactly it, Maeve. And perhaps somebody knows the quote and knows the book or the scientist or the archaeologist who said it. It was sometime recently in the past couple of years. But I thought that was a really, really interesting and a very excellent observation, by the way. That was the time when civilization can't happen without organization and mass production of food and sanitation, the aqueduct and all that stuff that the Romans brought about. But one of the things, of course, is healthcare, and we need to be able to look after our people and restore them to health when they get sick. Gillian says, good book. I presume you're referring to Hensey's book. Yet again, this appears to have been hinted at in the mythology. In the section about Douth, we saw how the Dinshenachus myth suggests that there was a cattle murrain or a cattle disease, and that the king Bresal Bodibad brought all the men of Erin to build him a tower to reach heaven. The Irish word for murrain in the Dinshenachus passage is death, D-I-T-H, which can mean loss, absence, lack, need, desire. And so, not for the first time, the archaeology and the mythology agree. What did the Roberts ever do for us? The aqueduct, sanitation, the roads, education. Yeah, but apart from all that, apart from those 27 things, what have they ever done for us? And so, not for the first time, the archaeology and the mythology agree. I love it when archaeology and mythology agree because it gives me something to talk about. As Hensey suggests, the monuments were getting bigger as the climate deteriorated and agriculture became more problematic. It could be that the Douth legend is more than just a fable and perhaps incorporates some core of remembrance of actual events. If you allow for this possibility, then the Doubt legend might also offer us an insight into the main question for discussion here about whether the monuments were built by collaboration or enforced labour or a mixture thereof. The cattle murrain, which might have been something like an infectious disease such as red water, or for instance something like foot and mouth, or one of those rapidly spreading cattle diseases, affected every place in Ireland according to the Dinchanicus. Hence he says that the cooler, wetter climate from 3600 BC onwards brought the additional challenge of disease and pests, which he says may have become an increasing problem during this time. Something that I didn't mention in this chapter when I was writing it, but it strikes me now as I'm talking to you, is the fact that if 3600 was the demarcation between the time when things were okay and the time when things weren't quite so okay climate-wise, that is interesting because that also kind of demarks the time between, and by the way, Gillian says, archaeology and mythology agreeing is my quest, which is why we are friends, Gillian, I suspect. We have very common interests. That 3600 could be the horizon. By the way, listen to this. This is interesting. It's just struck me right now. That could be the horizon between the Sligo monuments, some of which date to 3800 BC, which don't, by and large, almost exclusively don't have any megalithic art, and the monuments of Loughcrew and the Bóinne Valley, which have a plethora of megalithic art. Was there something about that? Was that a reaching out to the gods, an act of propitiation, perhaps, or something similar? A pleading to a creative outburst to try and make things happen with the weather. I don't know. It's just interesting. Requested quotation. Some years ago, anthropologist Margaret Mead was asked by a student what she considered to be the first sign of civilization in a culture. And this is from Rowan Grove. The student expected Mead to talk about, to talk about fish hooks or clay pots or grinding stones. But no, Mead said that the first sign of civilization in an ancient culture was a femur thigh bone that had been broken and then healed. Mead explained that in the animal kingdom, if you break your leg, you die. You cannot run from danger, get to the river for a drink, or hunt for food. You are meat for prowling beasts. No animal survives a broken leg long enough for the bone to heal. A broken femur that is healed is evidence that someone has taken the time to stay with the one who fell, has bound up the wound, has carried the person to safety, and has tended the person through recovery. Helping someone else through difficulty is where civilization starts, Mead said. That is absolutely fantastic, and that is exactly the one that I was talking about. Thank you, Rowan, for digging that out for us. Digging archaeologists. Never mind. Sorry, that's a poor joke. Best to talk to Francis Pryor about that. He doesn't keep with the Romans bringing civilization, and I'm down with that. Actually, I am too. And another one, what's his name? Barry, Gillian, help me. Barry, retired or Professor Emeritus, isn't he? Oxford Professor of European Archaeology. Barry Cunliffe. Barry Cunliffe disagrees with the contention that all of civilization and, all of the arts and the sciences emerged from the classical world. He said they were already on the periphery of Europe in the Neolithic and migrated inwards. So they're very interesting. And some of his talks are on YouTube. You don't even have to buy his books, but I'm sure they'd be an excellent addition to your library, not trying to get you to grow your libraries. Mary Hanrahan says, I believe it was anthropologist Margaret Mead. Yes, indeed, Mary. We've just had that, but thank you also for helping with that. Paula says, Anthony always looks on the bright side of archaeology and myths. There's a song that I could sing, but I could get in trouble with Facebook. Always look. I love it when archaeology and mythology agree. Anthony Murphy, Robin Edgar. Quotation. 45 minutes to launch of SpaceX. No! That guy is cluttering our skies. No, in fairness, it's the first time that American astronauts have been sent into space from American soil since the shuttle program ended. Interesting theory about the art, says Gillian. There's nothing there that I can substantiate it with, but I just wonder if that's part of the expansion of the size of the monuments, is the decoration of them as well. I was fortunate enough, says Kimberly Halligan, to have classes with Mead when I was a grad student at Columbia. She was amazing as an anthropologist and as a teacher. Well, weren't you very lucky, Kimberly? Thank you for sharing that. Catherine Woodruff, megalithic art could have been added during and generations after construction. I would leave it to higher experts on that. The difficulty with that, though, Catherine, is that you have to contend with the art that is hidden on the backs of curbstones and on the upper part of roofing slabs that was buried at the time the monuments were built. So it's not easy to explain that away. That doesn't, of course, mean all the megalithic art was added at the same time, but it certainly means some of it was definitely added at the time the monument was built. Cunliffe, yes, thank you, Gillian. Anthony's allergy pill has kicked in, says Kathy May. I think I need to just have a whiskey, to be honest. Whiskey will sort the problem out. Maeve says, yes, I love Barry Cunliffe's ongoing investigation. He raises his understanding when new evidence comes to light. Sorry, he revises. Don't we all? And every good scholar should, absolutely, in the face of new evidence. Now, I've lost my place because I was gotten so carried away. May become an increasing problem. On the big question, forced labour versus community collaboration, neither of the Dinshanicus passages about Doubt can settle the matter for us conclusively. And this is a quote from the Dinshanicus, all the men of Éireann were gathered from every quarter to Bressel to build them a tower after the likeness of the Tower of Nimrod. Note Christian insertion into the myth, because the Tower of Nimrod comes much later, that they might go by it to heaven. The men of all Éireann came to make for him that hill. And of course, there are two versions of the Doubt myth in the Dinshanicus. One is in the Doubt poem, and the other is actually in the Nouth poem. One version says they were gathered from every quarter to Bressel, perhaps suggesting that they were coerced. The other says that they were willingly, one presumes, presumes came to make this mound for him. We might never know. What material evidence would there be if there had been an elite and they had compelled the population to haul the giant stones up the banks from the Bóinne and to sail to Cooley and Wicklow and perhaps other areas in search of materials? How would we know one way or the other? The paucity of human bone remains found at the chamber of Newgrange suggests that it was possibly a burial chamber for a chosen few, the elite, perhaps. However, the fact that the chamber was open for more than 2.5 centuries before the excavations means that we cannot know how much organic material might have been removed or disturbed during that time. And the remains of many individuals were found at Nouth and Fornox, for instance. Andy Murray is watching. Fulcha, Andy, Conasata too. It may be that the downturn in the climate conditions over Ireland brought an increased urgency around the scale and nature of monument and ritual that were obviously closely tied to studies of the movements of the heavens. If the weather was worsening, perhaps the community considered the need to create grander edifices to the gods in order that the warmer, drier weather might return. We should not be surprised, therefore, to find that the chief god, Dagda, who is associated strongly with Newgrange, Sheedenbroga, in Tuchmark Etain and other stories, was the one who, quote, performed miracles and saw to the weather and harvest, unquote. Dagda was the red man of all knowledge, whose radiance was renowned, quote, who was king over all Éireann, sweet-sounding, radiant, who but the skillful Dagda, you hear of none other so famous, unquote. One of his epithets was Jerag Dirk, meaning red eye, which is taken to mean the sun. He is credited with being the actual builder of Newgrange, and in one episode in the Dinshanicus, Dagda is said to have drained a magical sea which had covered the land known as Mai Morhevna, translated as the darkness of the sea, or it is under the sea's roof. And of course, we dealt with that in last night's episode about Mata and the Lech Bend, and how basically, as the song Incy Wincy Spider goes, the sun came out and dried up all the rain. This land, Muirhevna, is today County Louth and anciently reached as far south as the River Bóinne, so that the great monuments of Bóinne were within its borders. And this is another quote again. We had this last night from the Dinchenicus. There was a magic sea over it, and an octopus therein, having a property of suction. It would suck in a man in armour till he lay at the bottom of its treasure bag. The Dagda came with his mace of wrath in his hand. It says in his band here, should be his hand, I think, and plunged it down upon the octopus and chanted these words. Turn thy hollow head, turn thy ravening body, turn thy resorbent forehead. Avaunt, begone. Then the magic sea retired with the octopus, and hence, maybe, the place was called Mag Muirhevna. I take this story to be a variation of the ancient creation myth about the monster known as Mata. Indeed, Dagda is credited with having killed the Mata at the Lech Ben, as we saw in an earlier chapter, referenced last night's episode, number 76, Newgrange, Mata and Lech Ben. The octopus, which he encountered in the magical sea over Bóinne, may have been a different type of creature. Lady Gregory described it as a sea turtle that could suck down a man in armour. The word octopus is a translation from the Irish mur selche. The word selche means a turtle or a tortoise or a snail. The form of the monster appears inconstant in the manuscripts, but there are aspects of the ancient creation tales that are reasonably consistent. The Mata licked up the Bóinne, causing a deprivation of water. The Mur Selche was expelled with the receding sea, causing another deprivation of water, thereby causing to surface the plain of Muirhevna. To my mind, they are both versions of a very early creation myth. There are aspects of the Mata Mur Selche myths that may echo a very ancient deluge, which is remembered in hundreds of similar myths from diverse parts of the world. His ability to make the sea recede marks Dagda out as a distinctly solar figure. Perhaps the megalithic builders of the late Neolithic constructed the greatest of their monuments, Newgrange, Nowth and Douth, to try to appease or encourage the Dagda in order that another environmental catastrophe be averted. In this milieu, with the memory of the warmer weather of the earlier Neolithic still extant, and a sense that conditions were gradually worsening, making farming more difficult, one can more easily imagine a certain level of active participation, zeal, and urgency among the community. If there was a sense that the midwinter sun was imagined to be weakening, and that by association the weather was deteriorating, and agriculture, and therefore survival, was becoming more difficult, a monument aligned towards the sun, Dagda, at its lowest ebb on winter solstice, seems more like the sort of project that would unify the community towards a goal that would help avert a climatological doomsday scenario. It is interesting that Dagda was said to have kept 2 pigs in Newgrange, one roasting on a spit, the other ready for slaughter, as a means perhaps of eternally satisfying hunger in the other world. And this is a quote, "There are 3 trees there perpetually bearing fruit, and an ever-living pig on the hoof, and a cooked pig, and a vessel with excellent liquor, and all of this never grows less." And that is from John Waddell, quoted in Cochan Carey's The Celtic Hero Age, page 145. There may be aspects of the declining climatological conditions that explain why, in the mythology, the older gods in the form of Dagda, or depending on the version, Elkmar, were deposed by the young son Aengus Og. It wasn't just a case that the old son of the year had lost its strength and was being dethroned by a new, vigorous young son. It might have been just as likely that the old son, that had been the friend of the Neolithic farmer since the earlier introduction of agrarian practices into Ireland, was seen to be gradually waning over the centuries, and that the arrival of Aengus Og as the new owner of Sheed signified the wish of the community that the climate be turned back in their favour. Notwithstanding the possible climatic implications for the construction of the Bóinne trio of passage tombs, there is the undoubted cosmological aspect. It has been reasonably demonstrated that all three had significant calendrical alignments tied to the movements of the sun, moon, and possibly some of the planets and stars. Was the symbolic information encoded upon some of the stones of these giant mounds intended, even in part, to serve as a teaching guide for the younger community so that they could become adept at the seemingly more complex lunar and planetary astronomy? Or were they, in fact, the arcane etchings of an elite and aloof priestly caste, a minority of learned druids or astronomers who kept their knowledge secret and whose carvings were designed to remain mysterious to the mainstream community? Certainly in the latter scenario, one could imagine that such a druidic stratum might indeed be seen to possess powerful abilities. A druid, for instance, who could predict that the next full moon would turn red might be a very powerful individual. Outwardly, it would appear that he had direct access to esoteric knowledge and that his prognosticative abilities were indeed magical. Inwardly, however, he was accessing his own knowledge of the predictable pattern of lunar eclipses, something that he had learned through patient study and observation with his druid colleagues, knowledge which was likely passed down through the generations. And of course, I'm speaking as a druid, as he. Of course, there is absolutely the possibility that it was a she. Knowledge which was likely passed down through the generations and which was perhaps remembered through story or mnemonic. This could be implied from Ronald Hicks's interpretation of Tuch Mark Etain. People told the stories, but maybe they didn't know the mysteries contained therein. Perhaps the early myths were transmitted from generation to generation by every member of the tribe or community, but the secrets behind the myth, the astronomical data, among other things, were known to only a few. And so to the conclusion. It is not easy to answer the question about how willing the community was to become involved in the grandest construction projects of prehistoric Ireland. We can only suggest possibilities based on very limited evidence. A great deal of what has been written about the ancient monuments and their builders is based upon sometimes sparse or inconclusive material evidence, and a great deal of speculation or hypothesis around same. We can suggest one thing, that a large community of people was involved in building Newgrange North and Douth. What we cannot prove or suggest with any level of certainty is how willing they were to participate. And so we will leave the final words in this matter to archaeologist Robert Hensey, who thus summarises what is probably the most acceptable consensus on the matter given the available evidence. A centralised authority would have been necessary for the gathering of animals and construction work to be accomplished, yet a certain amount of willing cooperation and community buy-in must have been present for the project to be a success. And that, of course, is from Robert's book, First Light, The Origins of Newgrange. And so there you have it. So we've inconclusively answered the question. We don't know. Can we ever know, is the question. And likely it was probably the sort of thing I would maintain. If you think about the late Neolithic structures in terms of an Enoch, in terms of an assembly site, and especially in terms of a lot of those sites that were Lunasa sites, that was the beginning of the harvest. So it makes sense that you brought people together at a time of the year when there was bountiful food supply, right? But bear with me on this one. But that you weren't just bringing them to celebrate that, you were actually also asking them to actively participate in the construction of the arena. And in the case of the arena, I'm talking about arenas, plural, in the case of the late Neolithic complex at Bóinne, which was truly enormous. And we now know that from the discoveries of the past couple of years. The scale of it means that a huge number of people have to have been involved, given that the best tools that we had for digging holes in the earth, and many of these holes are 1 meter to 1.5 meters wide and 1 meter to 2 meters deep, the post holes of the great timber circles. Many of those were dug only with cow scapula shovels. I mean, again, just to reiterate, this was a pre-metallurgy time, a time before we had metal tools and metal implements and metal weapons that might have assisted us with this task. And so if you weren't just celebrating the harvest, but you were actually asking people to participate in construction at that time, you brought people together. It was some sort of like enormous sacred assembly gathering. So all sorts of things happened. You had people helping to participate in the construction. You had people participating in the rituals and in the sports and the games and the music and the festivals and the dancing. And you also had people trading. And I think likely when the archaeology is able to catch up in terms of the digging, because so few sites in the Bóinne Valley have been dug apart from the giant passage mounds, the archaeological evidence might eventually betray a sense of that by showing us perhaps analysis, like at Dorrington Walls, analysis of animal bones that have been brought from all 4 quarters of the island and perhaps beyond. It'll be very interesting to see what archaeology can reveal in the next decade about those sites. For the moment, we cannot answer the question definitively. I'm not an archaeologist in any case. I'm probably not best placed to make the argument or to conduct the discussion. And there are experts or professors and scholars who are much more expert than I in these matters, who may be able to shed more light on the mystery. Certainly at Bóinne, one sees one of the largest monument constructing episodes in European prehistory. Certainly the largest, I think, in Ireland. Without, I don't think there's anything that comes close to it in terms of the scale and the number of monuments. One would love, wouldn't one, to be in a position to be able to go back in time, as I've often dreamed about doing, and flying over the Bóinne, or to be there as an observer from a different time, watching the proceedings as they happened, and trying to get a handle on some of the answers to these great questions and mysteries about the sites and their construction. And perhaps we might get the opportunity, as I said before, to converse with one of the builders. And to ask them, what's going on here? Tell us a little bit about this. Tell us who's in charge. Tell us what the inspiration is. Tell us what the reason for the building is. Tell us, is it like one at a time, or is there an overall plan for the complex? And how do you get word out to people? How do you get word out to the regional or national community, as it were? How do you get word out that you need people to become involved in this in a pre-literate and a pre-postal service era? So lots and lots and lots of very interesting questions about it. I do think that mythology provides at least some of the answers, or some of the insights, some insights into the possible answers to these questions, but of course, largely at the moment. What language would you use, says Oisin Lally? Well, even that is a mystery. Apparently, you would use Pi, Proto-Indo-European. Who knows? Who knows? But one thing I think is certain, that in order for I think for a society to exist at this level of complexity, to be able to construct these and to organize these, I think one has to assume that there was actually a reasonably complex language spoken, even if things weren't written down. We just don't know what the language was. And unfortunately, as I always say, the only written record they left was the megalithic art, which is so abstract, at turns so abstract and so bizarre and so apparently without pattern, that one gets lost in it and can only describe it, but can't, I think, necessarily, what's the word? One can't decipher it. One can decipher individual stones, like the calendar stone, but that decipherment doesn't necessarily apply to the stone next door. And so we're back to guesswork and hypotheses and speculation again. Anyway, if there are any questions, I'll take them. If not, we'll come back to Newgrange. I think tomorrow evening we have a series of Newgrange themed topics, which we've left very late because this is episode 77, but that's perfectly okay. We've had lots of interesting forays into Irish myths and stories and archaeology. Larissa says they don't tell a clear story. You're right, they actually don't. Perhaps in the mind of the people, the individuals who created them, they do. But of course, without that key, that decipherment key, the person or the artists to tell us, we're left guessing. Margaret says, if the people knew these monuments were important to have knowledge regarding the path of the sun, regarding agriculture, the people would have come together. It was their life and survival. Well, of course, because they were agrarian, one is inclined to think that a worsening or declining climate would certainly have led them to come together and say, right, lads and lassies, it's getting more difficult for us to grow our food. What are we going to do about it, you know? Donna Firer says, so glad I'm catching the end. Brilliant stuff, Donna. Fault you. And you'll be able to catch the rewind, of course, when the video goes up in a short while. Erin says, I always wish I could go back as a spirit and just watch without any ability to interfere. Just watch and listen. Yeah, a la Back to the Future. Definitely don't meet your prehistoric ancestor back there, or there could be a disruption in the space-time continuum. Patricia says, there would have to be blueprints or plans written or provided. One wonders about that. I don't think that the shape of Newgrange is accidental. It is kind of heart-shaped. Yes, but you know, the likely place to kind of create blueprints is on stone, you know. Perhaps some of the megalithic art is a plan for the complex. I don't know. Who can say? Did people build churches out of fear, says Megan Walters? It's a complicated idea. And of course they didn't. I'm just thinking about the great churches of Drogheda, which were built in the 1880s, and that's only less than a century and a half ago. That there was and I've mentioned that in my Newgrange book, that there was a certain amount of zeal and community buy-in with those. People were willing to strive towards this great ideal, you know. Like the people who built some of the churches, if they built them, they were granted a place in heaven. Would there have been a bit of that going on? Empty promises, a dispensation? Possibly. One wonders, because one thinks of course, the great mounds as being places where the bones were placed. That, you know, if you gave enough help, that perhaps you'd get some sort of, you know, help on your way, or some sort of druidical blessing. I don't know, of course. And of course, all of this is speculation, probably useful speculation. But the point is, we're never going to be able to answer the question. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to answer the question definitively. A proud thing to pass on in the family. Your great-grandfather helped build the brew. Absolutely true, Megan. Of course, yes. Why do they not put drones or robots into the passage tombs to see what's inside? They don't need to, Patricia, because they've excavated quite a number of them. So we know what's in them. Debbie says, I love picturing what it could have been like when the monuments were built. Yeah. Jim Conway says, it's possible migrant builder specialists from Iberian Peninsula could have been employed. Absolutely. I don't dispute that. It's possible there were visitors from France, of course, from Brittany, which is where some of the archaeologists maintain the inspiration for Newgrange came from. And in terms of the great late Neolithic complex, the Henges, I don't doubt at all that there was a community of people arriving there from perhaps across the sea, as far away as Britain, France, Orkney, maybe even the Iberian Peninsula, you know. It's wildly fascinating that the ancient Hawaiians built almost identical stone structures, some of which are massive and said to be built by both slaves and members of the community, and were dedicated to very specific gods. The commonalities are mind-blowing, says Larissa Kama. Megan says, I just can't imagine hundreds of people under the whip forced to build their sacred sites against their will. It seems like something people would want to be part of. Yeah, I'd go with that, Megan. I would go with that. Can't prove it, though. Having fun lip reading Mr. Murphy, as having just ordered the book from which he's reading, I'm avoiding the spoilers, says Long T Menoc. Ah, yes. But what you can do is read it and then afterwards play back this episode and have me read it to you. The Druids had to come from the population, says Megan, so they must have recognized interest and talent in the young and possibly groomed them for that reason. Yeah, that's highly possible. Yes, indeed. Yes, and Rowan makes an interesting point, and that is that the Dagda's excellent liquor may or may not have been mead, which is one of the earliest alcoholic beverages. As somebody has pointed out before, the introduction of farming doesn't just mean that you have grain for making bread and cows for milking and cows and bulls for slaughtering and eating the meat. It also means the beginning of the mass production of alcohol. Well, not the mass production, but you know what I mean. Gillian Smith says the plans would have been drawn out on the land. We're talking about skilled planners and architects. Yes, indeed, Gillian. Nothing about what happened in the Bóinne Valley and, of course, in other places was haphazard. It was all planned. Hugh O'Donnell on the news. Red Hugh. They still haven't found him, says Dave. James Carroll is watching. Fáilte, James. Megan says, why do people build anything? Need, desire, because they need or have to work? Divorced from the religious drive, why would these people build for more mysterious reasons than we have today? Who knows? Yeah, interesting question. Wonderful episode, says Barbara Kling. Newgrange was the start of everything Irish for me, and it has been a growing, wonderful obsession these past few years. Be careful. I know about wonderful growing obsessions. I've been on that path for 21 years. Would you think migrants from the Iberian Peninsula would have been employed? Yes, quite possibly, Jim. Yes. How old is Puchin, says Katrina. There you go. There's the answer to it. Although, doesn't Puchin come from the potato? Potatoes are a late arrival into Ireland, funnily enough. Right, folks, it's been wonderful. Another great journey of exploration. I'm very glad to have you all along. We'll have another episode tomorrow evening. I'll announce the episode in the middle of the day. I'll set up the YouTube feed in time this time around so that I won't be a couple of minutes late starting. In the meantime, it looks like a beautiful evening out there. Some of you will be wanting to go out and see this SpaceX capsule. If it launches on time, it's due to fly over Ireland and Britain and I think France. It's going to be difficult to see here because it's going to be quite low in the sky and it's going to be quite strong twilight. At 10 to 10, roughly speaking, 9:50. I'm not sure if it will be dark enough to see all but the brightest objects, but it could well be, so we'll keep an eye out for it. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to share them on here as or private message on the Facebook page or by email at mythicalireland@gmail.com. Get in touch with your question. No launch today, says Mariana Dunn. I didn't see that. Just because I've been broadcasting, I haven't been catching up with it. I'll take your word for it. But anyway, not to worry. I'm sure it'll be postponed to a time when it suits us. It'll probably be middle of the day now. We won't see it at all. In the meantime, folks, don't forget to keep washing your hands. Maintain your social distancing when you're outside. And wear a face mask, preferably. One that covers your nose and your mouth. Don't cut holes in it like some people do. Gillian Smith says, really enjoyed this. Looking forward to tomorrow. Great stuff, Gillian. Nice to have you along. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Nolan Proctor says, SpaceX is the future. It's a pity about that appallingly polluting cluster of constellation of satellites that is ever increasing in size. But anyway, that's for another discussion. Good night, everybody. Ichasov, Kolosov even. Have a sound sleep. Ikawa. Or, indeed, good morning to our Australian friends who are watching, or good afternoon to those in the States. We'll see you again tomorrow evening. For now, Banachty, Agus, Slán go fóill. Bye for now. We'll see you tomorrow.